Good evening, guys. Welcome to the Saturday night edition of Revolutionary Change, also known as Pontificating with Pete. Hope you guys have all had a great start to the weekend. Obviously, there is a number of topics that we have to cover this evening. The stories keep getting more fast and furious by the minute, but we're going to do our best to cover them. I know I say it from a we perspective because the fact of the matter is this is a give and take relationship. When we are communicating, we are all communicating together. And this is not a me just talking and you listening. This is, I want there to be engagement. And so naturally, I think we'll have a lot to talk about, especially tonight. And so there's a lot of different places that we can start. We know that the Charlie Kirk story keeps evolving in terms of the person in question who may or may not have done the deed. I know everyone is just quick to say that it definitely was him. I have tried to warn, as Jen has tried to warn each and every one of you, that don't jump to such conclusions so quickly. And while I do think it's very possible that the person who has been brought into custody did actually pull the trigger, I am not convinced, and neither should anybody be convinced, that this was done by one person, that there was only one person involved in this entire fiasco. I think we should all be extra skeptical about what is going on here. But before we get to that, for those who have been following the news today, there was a ginormous rally in London called Unite the Kingdom. This is definitely a rally that attracted a lot of people. Of course, those that are involved want you to believe that there was a lot more people there than actually were. It was a huge crowd, for sure. I would say, based on what I saw, I would say there was at least a couple of 100,000 people that showed up to this event. Tommy Robinson, it's not even his real name. Again, he's as fake as Israel is. But he is the guy who did organize this rally, and he's had quite a bit of backers that have been at his, quite a bit of financial backers, I should say, that has the wind at his back. And I am not going to say that this was not a big event. It 1,000% was. He brought a lot of people there. And this is what Tommy had to say, as at least, I would say, a couple 100,000 people lined the streets for the event. What would have been about 3 or 4 hours ago in London.
This is the biggest demonstration in British history. Britain has finally awoken. We've been waiting decades. They've had everyone scared. The British public is scared no more. This is never going away. Okay? Patriotism is the future. Borders are the future. We want our future.
So as you can see, there are a lot of the Union Jack flags, the St. George Christian flags. This was, I was actually in a play when I was a kid, and I played St. George. So that flag holds certain memories for me. What I will say is that right now, Nigel Farage, who is making a political comeback, no surprise, he is the leader of the Reform UK Party, the irony of that name. But the Reform UK Party evidently is leading in the polls. They are way ahead of the competition right now. And Tommy Robinson has been perhaps the face, if you're looking for a face of white nationalism, that's it. Tommy Robinson, 1,000%. And again, that's not his real name. For those of you who are not familiar, his real name is Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon. No relation to John Lennon, as far as I know. But this guy has garnered quite the following. He, without question, and for anybody who's a Brit, and maybe H.G. Wells can explain this, I'm not too familiar with Katie Hopkins, so if anybody wants to explain exactly who this lady is and what she stands for, I'm not entirely sure. But she was at Tommy's side the entire time, never left his side. So I am curious. I don't see her as his significant other, but certainly a confidant that was at this particular event. It does seem that is the impetus of this particular rally. That as much as it was deemed an anti-immigrant rally, what it really was an anti-Muslim rally. There is a great deal of concern, particularly amongst, I mean, listen, it was a predominantly white crowd. Sure, I saw some diversity in the crowd, if that even counts for anything, but there is no question that this is a great concern amongst the white populace of the United Kingdom, predominantly in England, that does not like the exceptionally high amount of Muslim migrants that have been relocating to the UK. And if your concern is truly about whether or not your country becomes infiltrated, I would ask, why is it that you're having this issue? Why is it that so many people coming into your nation, and whether you want to say they're browning it or they are changing the language, possibly some customs, I'd like to know why. Because at this particular event, it should come as no surprise to anybody, there's a lot of different groups that you can highlight that were there today. But if there is one that I think deserves it the most, it's this group. Now, I know this is a little bit of a blurry image. Pretty disturbing image. You know, I thought this was a Unite the Kingdom rally, not the Unite Behind Israel rally, but it does seem that quite a few of the Zion-Nazis found their way into this event. If you support the United Kingdom and you support a reduction or a significant drawback on immigration, again, that's your policy. That's your decision. I know there are people who say, how could you feel that way? Well, you know what? The polls in the United Kingdom show Nigel Farage in a very comfortable lead right now in the polls. So clearly, whatever they're doing is clearly of great concern to them. But what isn't being discussed is, why is this happening? Those people waving those flags, they have a lot to do with this. The Israelis have a lot to do with why this has become a problem. No one wants to talk about that now, do they? But Tommy Robinson has wrapped himself in that Israel flag as tight as humanly possible. There is nothing he will not say or do to support the Israel cause. Now, one would be asking themselves, why is that? Is it truly that he has been on an anti-Palestinian crusade since October 7th, 2023, because he genuinely cares about the Jewish people or the Israeli people? I would venture to guess that the answer is no, that isn't the case. He doesn't give a flying F whatsoever. And the reason I feel this way, and the reason I believe a lot of you would probably feel this way, is because, again, our job on our channel is to bring you as much informative details on critical issues as possible. What a lot of people may not know, and yes, you should follow the shekels. That's exactly what happened here. Tommy Robinson is funded by the genocidal state of so-called Israel. And I think we should get into the habit of referring to them as the so-called state of Israel, because they're not really a state. But I digress. This should be enlightening for most of you.
Links Israel with the instigators of recent racist violence in the UK. The answer lies in a global network of anti-Muslim and pro-Israel politicians, think tanks and philanthropists which have been funding and promoting the UK's lead.
That's Tommy Robinson. I don't know about you, but if you're rocking the IDF shirt, kind of like Congressman Brian Mast did on the congressional floor, I'd say that that's pretty messed up. Again, I'm being very generous with my language here right now. Maybe I'm mellowing out somewhat. We'll see how the night goes along. There is no question that in almost every instance that we are now seeing, if there is a prominent voice, no matter where they are, it could be here in the United States, it could be in the UK, which is pretty much the only two places that of considerable note at this point. I know that there's some stuff going on in South Korea. We haven't addressed that yet. Maybe we will on Monday. Most, if not all, of the people that are supporting the genocidal state of Israel are doing so for monetary gain. I think it's safe to say most would agree that that is the case.
Leading far-right figures.
Put them on boats and send them back. They have to rise up to defend their families.
So who are these figures? The most notorious is Tommy Robinson. Robinson is the former leader of the English Defence League, an openly racist, anti-Muslim and anti-migrant movement. The EDL effectively disbanded in 2013, but the movement continued around the actions of Tommy Robinson, his court appearances, imprisonment, and mobilizing people against migrants and Muslims. His most recent rally, which included many Israel supporters, pulled a crowd of around 20,000 people in London just days before the riot started. Misinformation spread across far-right social media accounts sparked the violence. They falsely named the culprit in an appalling stabbing attack on children in northern England on the 29th of July as a Muslim.
His name is Ali Al-Kati, a very Welsh-sounding name.
It later turned out he was a UK-born Christian with Rwandan heritage. Far-right protesters hijacked a vigil for the dead children and mobilized a mob to attack a mosque. The violence then spread across the UK and included racist attacks on Muslims, Asian Britons, Black Britons, and asylum hotels.
Now, I would ask if anybody is in the United Kingdom right now, and I would take it a step further, and if you actually do support Tommy Robinson and this nationalist movement, I would be inclined to at least listen as to what your rationale is. If it's a question of it just being race, there is no excuse for that. Zero. If you're going to tell me that your reasoning is that the assimilation of the migrants that are coming is causing difficulties amongst the people, it is at least worth listening to. But as I said, why is it happening? Why is it that migrants are coming to your country that are not able to assimilate or do not have any money or are desperate to survive? Why are they there? Well, a big part of it is the Greater Israel Project. And I doubt Tommy Robinson is going to say one word about that. You know why? Because he's being paid by them. A lot of money. That's how these organizations grow. When you have as much money as humanly possible, which Israel, I'm not going to say they have it anymore. Clearly a lot has changed. But when they have been able to ostensibly buy off as many people as possible to push their narrative, eventually they kind of get desperate and they end up working in conjunction with people like Tommy Robinson, who is unabashedly white nationalist, very proud too. And there are a lot of people who turn to this nationalism when they fear that their culture, not necessarily color, but especially culture, is being taken away from them. So it is always important to understand how people end up supporting somebody like Tommy Robinson and understanding that, again, I should not even call him Tommy Robinson because it's not even his real name. Again, he's just like Israel. He's as fake as Israel. He doesn't even go by his real name. And so his level of, again, leadership in these circumstances, it's violent, it's angry, and it's only going to get worse.
But Robinson's links to Israel go much deeper than flags at his rallies. Robinson has long considered himself a Zionist.
I notice you're wearing a shirt or a button that says "I am a Zionist." What's a Zionist?
Well, a Zionist, someone believes in a homeland for Jewish people.
The English Defence League had a Jewish division run by former IDF soldier Roberta Moore, which later named itself the Jewish Defence League after a Jewish terror group and used the logo of another terror group, the Kahanist movement. Robinson was, and possibly still is, funded by pro-Israel anti-Muslim organizations based out of the US. One source of funds, according to a Guardian investigation, is tech billionaire Robert Shillman, who, until recently, was a director of the Friends of the Israeli Defense Forces.
This is one of the things that we talk about constantly when people talk about, powerful Jewish people in high places. Again, Jewish Zionists in high places, wealthy, connected, powerful individuals like this Shillman, a very appropriate name, Shill, is funding these guys. He's funding them. As a friend of the show from the UK just pointed out, he's over there. Tommy's movement is small, relatively speaking, but he's well funded. And when you're well funded, you can get a couple of 100,000 people in the streets on a Saturday in the UK. Elon Musk made an appearance at the rally. He put out his message. Elon's actually been extremely volatile over the last 72 hours. I do believe he was friendly with Charlie Kirk, and so for him, this is a serious personal vendetta that he's taking on, saying it's the left. Like I said, we're going to get to Tyler Robinson eventually. But in the meantime, we'll deal with Tommy Robinson first.
Funded Dutch extreme right politician Geert Wilders and funds journalism at the far-right news outlet Rebel Media. The Times of London spoke to a former colleague of Robinson, Lucy Brown, who said Shillman paid $11,000 a month for him to work there.
Imagine that. One guy paying Tommy Robinson £11,000 to work at a news outlet, Rebel Force, that, again, how many people would line up to make £11,000 a month, which is the equivalent, I believe, would be the equivalent to about $13,000 a month? Might be 14,000. It's a decent amount of money. Actually, it's a lot of money. It's the equivalent of probably about $150,000 a year. It's a lot of money. So to say that there are people who will love Rebel Media. So Rebel Media gets, hey, thank you for calling me a clown. At least I was able to get the information I needed. So thank you for that. Rebel Media was paying through a Jewish Zionist, Mr. Shillman, again, perfect name, Shillman, was paying Tommy Robinson £11,000 a month to shill for Israel. You think he's the only one? There are hundreds. There's plenty of people out there with their hands out willing to do this work. And even if you don't agree with it, and I believe many people didn't, including Charlie Kirk, it pays extremely well. And it's very difficult for even the most well-intentioned of people to turn that type of money down, especially if they need it. So that's how they hook them. But Tommy was ready, willing, and able. Therein lies the rub.
What is far right about my views? That's all I want to know.
Rebel Media journalists have also got money from another pro-Israel organization called the Middle East Forum. The MEF paid $60,000 for Robinson's legal fees after he was arrested for contempt of court in 2018 and organized a far-right rally for him in London. The director of this organization is Greg Roman, a former Israeli government employee and once the coordinator of activities in the West Bank for Israel's Department of Defense. He told the Middle East Monitor in an email that MEF regrets funding the event supporting Mr. a former Israeli government employee and once the coordinator of activities in the West Bank for Israel's Department of Defense. He told the
Now, I believe this may have been clipped from earlier today, but you can see that the crowd is pretty big. There's a lot of people that showed up to this event. Now, clearly, those that are in Conservative Inc., as it is known, they exaggerated how many people were actually at this rally today. What a surprise. Well, we know where they get the exaggeration from. Again, a lot of people were there. I'm not going to say that they weren't. It definitely drew a large crowd, but you have people suggesting that there were anywhere from 1 million to 3 million people that showed up there today. Again, that's not the case. When there was the Free Palestine rally in Washington, D.C., I want to say like a year and a half ago, that drew about 1 million people. Legitimately. That's what 1 million people looks like. There were a lot of people there for sure, but that's not anywhere near the amount that they're saying that it was. But again, as one of our friends from the UK in the chat did say, there is a propensity when you have a considerably volatile ideology that you're trying to push to make it seem like it's much bigger than it really is. That's not to say that there aren't a lot of people in the UK who are becoming extremely anti-migrant right now. That is a very fair statement to say. And again, it is reflective in the polls because Nigel Farage is leading the way in the polls. So that does matter.
Middle East Monitor in an email that MEF regrets funding the event supporting Mr. Robinson, and despite many articles in support of Mr. Robinson remaining on their website, they have supposedly cut all ties with him. Robinson traveled to Israel in 2016 on a guided tour that saw him pose on an Israeli tank with a gun, wear an IDF t-shirt in the West Bank, and even visit a Bethlehem refugee camp.
I was very nervous when we were going into a Palestinian refugee camp. I hugely benefited from walking around that camp.
Despite this humbling experience, he more recently called Palestine a shithole full of inbred Islamist parasites and terrorists.
You have to believe that those statements that Tommy is making in general probably is what he believes, but even if it isn't what he believes, he is definitely being paid handsomely to say just that.
Above a poster saying, F Palestine. Rebel Media, according to a former employee, Lauren Southern, took their staff on guided tours of Israel. Southern was fired because she questioned the need to fundraise for a state-sponsored trip.
It became pretty obvious that this was a guided tour, not a fact-finding mission.
Another figure of the British far right, Katie Hopkins, who was one of the key figures along with Robinson that contributed to starting the riots, was one of those taken by Rebel Media on a sponsored trip to Israel.
All I can hear is the call to prayer. I feel like I'm being tortured in a cell by Al-Qaeda.
Let me tell you, it's going to get a lot harder going forward for even the most committed of grifters, Brandon Tatum, to just go along with this. At this point, the level of desperation on Milikowski's part and everyone within the Zionazi movement, they don't have mainstream regular people espousing the pro-Israel narrative. I mean, look around, guys. I mean, where do you really see it? Sky News in Australia? It doesn't really exist. So they have to buy off guys like Tommy Robinson, who are all too eager to take as much filthy money as they get their hands on, because they're just filthy people to begin with. They're angry, resentful, and don't really hold any honest ideology. Again, if the real concern is about the issues that exist, you would find yourself being much more concerned about issues like healthcare, the economy, education, the environment, and especially foreign policy. And if that's not your concern, if you are not centered on that fact, and all you want to do is just point the finger at the brown people coming into your country and not asking why the brown people are coming into your country, you've already lost and you will continue to lose. And even if it's temporary that you might gain support, it doesn't mean anything. It's so fucking pointless, and it makes you so much less productive in the world. You really have to ask yourself, why harbor so much for people that have so little, and cave so easily for those that have it all? You should have seen the way that people were trying to slurp off of Elon at the event today. I'm not going to play him because it's not worth it. And so I do think that is of considerable importance here.
Hopkins is an extreme right personality and shock jock known for calling migrants cockroaches and vermin in national newspapers, and has been using her social media accounts of 2 million plus followers to help spread misinformation and mobilize the racist marchers. Her video falsely giving an Arab-sounding name to the Southport child killer is still online. Hopkins loves Israel. She launched her conspiracy-laden documentary there. She gives regular talks, meets with Israeli officials, and pro-Israel groups love her. Like Robinson, she was a Shillman Fellow at Rebel Media, financed by Robert Shillman.
Okay, just the fact that she dressed up in that hijab, which clearly was done for shock value, is beyond disgusting. No respect whatsoever for the culture. Again, when does a non-Muslim wear the garb? When you enter a mosque. As far as I could tell, she's not in there. She's out in public. I don't know if, again, she's doing this for shock value or to cause trouble. Whatever her reasoning is, it's pretty disgusting. And this is the person that was arm in arm with Tommy Robinson at the rally this afternoon.
And the tech billionaire, and run through another anti-Muslim group, according to Vice News, called the David Horowitz Freedom Center. Katie is a regular speaker at their events, paid to deliver humorously racist after-dinner speeches and spew anti-Muslim hate.
Unlike my Muslim friends who have 15 under the age of 3. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I don't have any Muslim friends.
So why?
Well, she's telling the truth about both, I guess. Honestly, people like that don't even bother me. I just laugh at them, and I pity them. They're very weak people. Extremely weak.
Are most of the far-right leaders in not only Britain but around Europe supporting Israel? Robinson started out in the British National Party, a successor to the National Front. Both were deeply anti-Semitic and racist movements, but more closely aligned with mid-20th century fascist ideologies like Nazism. And now anti-Muslim and anti-migrant hate is the primary agenda of these groups. Their Islamophobia has made them natural allies of other supremacist ideologies like Zionism in Israel or Hindu nationalism in India. So the war in Gaza, an occupation of Palestine, and the recent wave of racist violence in the UK are connected by a network of pro-Israel and anti-Muslim organizations who are promoting hate against Muslims in Britain while supporting the ethnic cleansing and military occupation of Muslims in Palestine.
So there you have it. Tommy Robinson does a rally today, and without question, it was a big rally. Had a lot of people show up. There were, again, very angry, resentful people that were there and feel that they are losing their country. But keep in mind, that is why this is such a big issue. He's getting the support from the Israel lobby, from the wealthy class, much as our chat has pointed out. Guys, we have 731 people currently watching, but only 237 of you have hit that like button. If you would be so kind, it doesn't cost a dime. We really appreciate your support. If you could smash that like button, maybe we could get to 1,000 live stream viewers tonight. So what do you say? Smash that like button for us. We really appreciate it. I think Tommy Robinson is going to continue to have an effect. I think there's a lot of people in the UK that are dealing with a different issue regarding immigration than we are here in the States, but perhaps there's similarities. I can't say for certain. What I do know is that there are a lot of scared people in this world right now, and they don't really know which way things are going. And so naturally, the inclination is to lash out at people that they can hit. You see, we often talk about whether people are punching down versus punching up. It is a lot easier to target. Again, I'm not here to tell somebody how they should, how they do their own house cleaning in their own country. Like I said, in the United Kingdom right now, it is obvious that the Reform UK Party, led by Nigel Farage in conjunction with Tommy Robinson, is what is cooking in the polls. And so there's a reason why so many people showed up today. But there are way too many people who are ignoring the reality of why, if you want to call it a migrant crisis that the UK is having, what is responsible for that? Who is responsible for that? State of Israel and their cohorts. They have a lot to do with this. And it is only going to get more volatile as we go forward. And why is it going to get more volatile as we go forward? Because Israel is losing control in a big way. The narrative, support, the money. The American people will take back its country. That's what will happen. We will take back our country. And if we do that, it will not come because anything, it won't be as a result. Let's put it this way. It won't be as a result of any conflicting attitudes about our elected officials or activists, if you will. It's going to come because the people simply demand it. If that happens, the change will happen. I would like to think that anybody who has been paying attention, I agree with Arctic. If you like this, make sure you smash it if you're not a Zion. I think that's very important. And speaking of Israel, look, I'm sure most people did see Erica Kirk's eulogy that she gave to her husband. I think she's being way too gratuitous, particularly today. She showed his body in state in his casket. There is going to be a celebration of life rally in Glendale, Arizona in, I want to say, 5 days, I think. I don't know if Charlie lived in Scottsdale, but it certainly wouldn't surprise me if that's where they were based, and that's why they're doing it there. But Erica Kirk made a very interesting statement when she spoke yesterday.
The evildoers responsible for my husband's assassination have no idea what they have done.
Now, keep in mind, she made this statement knowing full well that they have a suspect in custody named Tyler Robinson. You would think that a person like that, first of all, it's like I said, it's very gratuitous. But who is these evildoers? Again, this statement was made after the fact. So why is that? Why would she say the evildoers? Does she know something that we don't know? There is going to be great debate. Do not get lost in the shuffle. They're going to say that it was the Groypers, and that's where Bella Ciao comes from. They're going to say that he was a leftist. that he had the rainbow flag and that he had a transgender significant other. The worst part about our political discourse today is that everything is centered around one-upmanship on one side versus the other side. It isn't about how we ended up here. As Jenna said, as I will say, if you are already, again, they are referring to this guy as the killer. There hasn't been a trial. There's been no ballistic evidence that has proven that it was him. All we have is a photograph from a camera showing him at the event and saying that his father turned him in and apparently gave a substantial reward as a result. They want to sweep this under the rug as fast as humanly possible. But I ask you, ladies and gentlemen, I ask you all, you tell me, how is it conceivable that the great state of Israel had 2 murals up within hours of him? His body wasn't even cold yet. And you had murals up for him? I'm not even going to dignify Benny Johnson with the fucking mural that he put up for Charlie in like 24 hours in Tampa, Florida. The grifting shit that people will do in order to make a few bucks. And again, I'm not going to absolve anything that comes from Mrs. Kirk. But as I said, she's grieving. I have a friend that knew Charlie personally. She's grieving. Again, we all have different ways to approach this. I have always been adamant about my disagreements with Charlie. I didn't like him. I saw him as a grifter, a great grifter, mind you. He was great at what he did. Extremely successful. Really tremendous, incredible. But there is something really sinister about what's going on here. It's not adding up. So let's hear what else Erica has to say.
They killed Charlie because he preached a message of patriotism, faith, and of God's merciful love.
I would question how much merciful love he was preaching when he said a lot of the things that he said. And again, the internet is forever, and there are plenty of instances of Charlie saying not so friendly things. In fact, he says pretty horrible things. Does that mean that Charlie is completely wrong on everything that he talks about? No, there are certainly things that he got right. But that's the thing about being an effective messenger. That's the thing about any effective messenger and why they garner so much support. You see it with Nick Fuentes. You see it with Candace Owens. You see it with Tucker Carlson. You see it with a lot of people. There's a reason why they last as long as they do and why they're as effective as they are. That, as much as anything, I think is a huge part of this. So keep that in mind.
They should all know this. If you thought that my husband's mission was powerful before, you have no idea. You have no idea what you just have unleashed across this entire country and this world. You have no idea.
I have an idea of what you and your cohorts have been doing over the last 48 hours. You've been doxing the shit out of working class people that said that they were happy that Charlie was killed or no tears shed because Charlie was killed. Again, I'm not here to celebrate his assassination. But if somebody wants to celebrate his assassination, that is their constitutional right to do it. And for the side of the political aisle that constantly wants to badger left populists or just left politicos in general, you always say that the Karen Hall monitors were the shit libs of the United States. And I'm not going to say that they're not. They certainly are. But you think you're any better? You think you're any better when you call out people that barely are able to rub 2 cents together? That's who you're attacking? In fact, one of the people that has been making it her mission in life, her name is eluding me right now, but you're talking about somebody who has been posting incessantly on X, talking about how I dox this person, I dox that person, this person's in trouble, that person's in trouble. Again, the people that they're going after are everyday people. These are people that are teachers. I saw people that are going after firefighters. They're going after construction workers. They're going after minimum wage workers in places like Starbucks and McDonald's. Those are the people that you're going after. That's who's a threat to you. That's who's a threat to anybody. We have to make an example of desperate people. You are going to turn this boomerang around on your ass so fast. You're going to make the whole country hate you, and rightfully so. You don't like what somebody has to say about Charlie Kirk? Look away. Either you support freedom of speech or you don't. Now, I'm not saying Mrs. Kirk is telling people to go out there and make an example of anyone who speaks disparagingly of her late husband. I don't believe that that's her message. But do I think that there are people in high places that are shelling out a lot of money for those to go after anyone who questions Charlie Kirk? Yes. Anna Paulina Luna is already talking about a statue, I believe, in the rotunda of the Capitol of Charlie Kirk. Are you fucking kidding me? The cringe is real, and the insanity is even worse. This is a prime example of people that get drunk with power and go too far.
You have no idea the fire that you have ignited within this wife. The cries of this widow will echo around the world like a battle cry.
Well, she may be right about that. She's in pain. So are her two kids. But make no mistake, Charlie said some pretty hateful things. And people always use their religion to defend their inhumanity. And that is a big problem. There is no defense of that, guys. So we have to always speak truth to power. And I would also say that for anybody that is in independent media and is looking around at how things are unfolding right now, it is very fair to say that people that have been using the pro-Israel narrative for making money and throwing countless innocent people under the bus. Again, I am not here to suggest that that is the reason why definitively that Charlie is deceased, but I will say this. You had somebody that was speaking very firmly about changing his position on the state of Israel. There's no question that he did. How do I know this? Well, as a follow-up to the conversation that happened the other night with that Megyn Kelly had not just a few weeks ago with Charlie Kirk, she brought on somebody who knew Charlie Kirk very well, and that is Tucker Carlson.
The only people, I mean, truly one of the only people to go to the president whom he loved. He loved Donald Trump, like personally as well. And I think the president really loved him in a real way. But he was one of the only people to go to the Oval Office and say, sir, I totally understand and think Iran's really bad, but a war with Iran is not, is something that could really hurt our country. I mean, boy, that was an unpopular position. He didn't need to express it. Oh, of course. And he did it again. He didn't have some weird agenda. He wasn't mad at anybody. He was for his country, and he was for doing the right and wise and difficult thing. And he said that. He went to the Oval Office to say that. He took massive, massive abuse from his own donors, which is also something that you...
Now, therein lies a very key point that Tucker is making, that I have been expressing, that we have been expressing on this channel for quite some time. People have been saying you make a deal with the devil, eventually the devil's going to come to collect. No one here would have ever heard of Charlie Kirk if it wasn't for the Koch brothers. He had massive billionaire funding. Talented as all hell. I'm not going to say that Charlie Kirk was not talented. He absolutely was. And anyone who thinks he wasn't doesn't understand human behavior. He was popular, and he had a big following for sure. But you never would have heard of him if it wasn't for the billionaire corporate donors that allowed Turning Point USA to grow into the behemoth that it did. And when you get your talking points, you follow them. You don't question them. You're not allowed to. The second you deviate, well, Tucker just said something that we were not aware of. Look who showed up in the chat. I'll be speaking to you real soon, brother. If you guys are not subscribed to Rothbone, get the heck over to his channel and subscribe. You want to talk about the best commentary against Zionist Karens? He's the best. A private meeting with the President of the United States saying, do not go to war with Iran. Listen, credit where credit's due. If Charlie did that, hats off to him. That means a lot. And if I can say thank you to Charlie for anything, if he had any impact whatsoever, much like Tucker Carlson had an impact on Trump back in 2017 with the bombing of Damascus and telling him not to go to war in Syria. Credit where credit's due. And the same would be for Charlie Kirk. If he convinced Trump, don't go to war with Iran, it's not the answer. As of today, we're not at war with Iran, as far as I know. And if he had an impact in any way, that's a big effing deal. So let's take it a step further. Did Charlie Kirk get a phone call or an email or a private meeting saying, you don't dictate policy? This ain't your show, pal. This is ours. We call the shots. And that's why you saw several clips of Charlie over the last few weeks basically saying, I'm kind of having second thoughts about Israel. I don't really know what to do here. Well, the people who allow you to be a very wealthy and powerful politico told you what you needed to do. And if you defied them, that's the whole thing about Charlie's assassination that I think is scaring the shit out of a lot of people. You see, we're online. We're again, amazing crowd tonight. We have over 900 people watching, which is amazing. But guys, we are in many ways just living in fantasy. This is social media discourse. People are free to comment from anywhere around the world, and all of that is great. But something like Charlie getting killed made things a little too real for too many people who think that what you say can't actually turn into what will be done. Actions always speak louder than words. Charlie's actions, not his words, Charlie's actions is what got him killed. Do not forget that.
You don't see people, and he loved his donors. It wasn't a hostile thing, but they had a different view. A lot of them, not all, but a lot. And they expressed it to him in a very intense way. I know because he showed me. And he said, look, I understand your perspective. This is my perspective, and we're going to do what we think is the right thing, the wise thing.
In that way, too, he was the voice of young people. I mean, there are no young people in the country anymore supporting this war and wanting Israel to continue its bombing campaign. That's just the truth. Look at the poll.
Tucker Carlson is saying it. Megyn Kelly is saying it. Israel's running out of real estate. So what are they going to do? Are they going to kill everybody? They're going to try. But I said this to a friend of mine, my friend that I spoke to last night. She was not prepared to come on and talk about this because she's, like I said, she was actually, she knew Charlie on a personal level. But she didn't dispute that I said that Milikowski, he's a dead man walking. He's not going to get away. He's not getting out of this. Now, when are the walls going to close in on him? Not sure yet, but I think it is inevitable. This is where we know that the sea's changing. All you have to do, Tucker has actually been very sharp on this issue for quite some time, but you only have to go back a few months to listen to Megyn Kelly slurping Israel. But now her tune is changing. And now it's really changed after Charlie was killed. Remember, people like them sit in a completely different place in society. They have a completely different, they're privy to certain information that none of us know about. So the fact that they are changing their tune, she's changing her tune in a big way. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
And he was in touch with them. And even where his own opinion may have differed from their opinion, he felt like he owed it to them to bring their message to the sitting president of the United States. I mean, it was, that's what's been snuffed out.
Well, as he has been, unfortunately.
This is why I don't want anyone to stop asking questions. We cannot stop asking questions. The goal of the powers that be right now is to get you to shut up and accept that they have found the assassin, and that assassin was either a leftist or a groyper. You decide, case closed, and on to the next one. We're not going to stop. I'll tell you why we're not going to stop. Remember how I said earlier that Israel, particularly Milikowski, is getting pretty desperate about being able to get the narrative under control. We know they've lost it. They've lost it forever. But that's not going to stop them from going on corporate media and continuing to try to push this narrative. But to Greta Van Sustren's credit over at Newsmax, she did question Milikowski in a way that I don't think he was totally expecting.
Before I let you go, I want you to address one thing, and it's just the absurdity of it. Some of the internet rumors that somehow Israel is behind the Charlie Kirk murder. And
okay, so here's a little trick. Greta Van Susteren, for those of you that don't know, she's been in media for a very long time, and she's actually really good at it. She was one of the original. I don't know if she was, I don't think she was a host, but I know that she was one of the original commentators on Fox News at its birth back in 1996. Thank you very much, Bill Clinton, for that telecom act. She was also somebody who was well known on, I want to say, C-SPAN and CNN during the OJ trial. And then eventually she got herself in a very lucrative position with Fox News, and she's been in the media ever since. So little trick there that she actually threw at Milikowski. Instead of actually not addressing the rumor that Israel had anything to do with this assassination, she puts it as, I know this is a really ridiculous question, and on the surface, I shouldn't even ask it. But by the way, did you guys kill him by any chance? Whether you like it or not, that is good journalism on Greta's part.
you know, I don't believe it for 1 second, but I want you to, make a statement. It's so absurd.
That's insane. That's insane. Israel also changes the orbit of the moon. Israel pushes the sun. I mean, the whole thing is, it's not only insane, I think it's so absurd, so stupid, and so ridiculous. You can't believe that people are saying this. They just found the perpetrator. They'll get to the bottom of this. But
how do you know they found the perpetrator? How would you know that? What type of information are you given that no one else is? You don't know that he's the guy who did it. Unless you know something we don't. Again, the person has just been arraigned. There's been no trial. There's been no forensic evidence. Nothing. But you know who the killer is. See, Bibi knows all. He knows what's going on. I'm telling you guys, something really strange is going on here, and it's not adding up.
They go, you know, they have no limits. When you hate Jews, when you hate the Jewish state, you're willing to say anything and promote all these absurd rumors. And by the way, they're willing to kill us all the time. I mean, that's what they're doing. And
you know, before they found the patsy, Bibi was saying that it was a Muslim that did this. That's who committed this crime. That's who's guilty. He wears the guilt on his face, even though he's a total psychopath. I mean, even psychopaths have a hard time continuing to perpetuate the lie that everyone can see through.
You know, over the centuries, when Jews, especially in the Middle Ages, the horrific Middle Ages, the worst things were said about Jews you couldn't possibly believe. We were poisoning the wells. We were drinking the blood of Christian children. You name it. I mean, these things, that continued actually up to the Holocaust. The Nazis said the same thing. You know, we're carrying vermin.
Checkpoint Charlie, I just got to give you a shout out. That is a great profile pic. If those of you who don't know what movie that is that Sam Neill is in that picture, it's a good one. Beware of the devil, I say.
We're spreading disease, and people believed it. And every time they believed it, this was a prelude to a greater and greater massacre, culminating with the worst massacre of them all, the Holocaust. Well, since then, we've learned, A, when people spread these lies about us, prepare yourself for the assault. And, you know, they're trying to delegitimize the state of Israel. Charlie Kirk said to me that, he wrote me this detailed letter, you have to fight the slander. These untruths, these vilifications have.
Maybe you'd like to produce that letter from Charlie Kirk, because I'm having a hard time believing that it even exists.
Consequences. And he was right. But I'll tell you one thing, we're fighting on the battlefield against the terrorists and winning. And he was fighting on the battlefield of ideas. And I think he was winning. He was going to win. That's why they shot him. I hope they don't silence him. I don't think people will give in to these ridiculous lies.
Kirk was shot because he was winning? No, I think Kirk was shot because he actually decided to get out of line. And it wasn't just one thing. It was a succession of things, as we pointed out. For example, his decision to platform Dave Smith at the most recent Turning Point USA convention, even though he was warned not to do it, and he did it anyway. He did that interview shortly thereafter with Megyn Kelly, saying how he was threatened repeatedly about having Dave Smith on his podcast, as well as the platform at the event. Again, whatever his reasoning is, I wish we could have gotten Max Blumenthal on the podcast to talk about the conversation that he had with apparently a good friend of Charlie's who confided in him. He wanted to remain anonymous, but said crystal clear as day. Charlie said, and I quote, "I am afraid for my life, and I am not sure that Israel isn't going to potentially do something to me." If you look at that interview that he did with Megyn Kelly, and we covered it, there's a clip up right now if you guys want to check it out. He constantly complained about, am I not pro-Israel enough? And my response to that is, no, you're not. You can never be pro-Israel enough. There's no such thing. You're only as good as the last message that you put out there. You're only as useful as the last statement you make that says that Israel has the right to defend itself and that they're the right people. The Palestinians are evil. They're all controlled by Hamas. We've all seen the talking points. And we all know for sure that that is what they're going to continue to push. But there is something much more sinister going on that we're going to get to in a moment. But first, since we have over 900 of you here, And we have to give a big shout out to all of you that are here watching live tonight. It's one of our bigger crowds. We really appreciate you all. Please make sure, if you are enjoying this content, to go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change. For as little as $5 a month, you could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. Last I checked, we are currently sitting count-wise in terms of subscriptions. Hopefully you guys have been hitting that subscribe button as well as that like button, which definitely makes a huge difference in our ability to grow. And as of right now, our current count in subscriber numbers currently sits at 55,863. So we are, yes, a small but mighty and growing channel, and we are very grateful for each and every one of you that are here tonight. But of course, we have to address our super chatters. John Stella, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate you being here. Kenman with the 279 Canadian A. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to speak with you again. Yes, you have. Brett Boyle, our trusted mod with the 99-cent super sticker from Canada. Appreciate you, my friend. JG 1982 with his 3-month membership and growing strong. Anti-migrant was Brexit main issue, and it's becoming a main issue again. And it is obviously being reflective in the polls as we speak. The numbers don't lie. Piano Man with the $10 super sticker. Really appreciate you checking in, my friend. Really means a lot. Laug66 with the £5. Best take on Kirk. Fiorella Isabel. Brief excerpt. No, this is all a gigantic manipulation to stoke division amongst Americans. It couldn't be more obvious. That's why I pointed out earlier about the whole concept of let's target as many working class people as possible and get them fired from their job because they didn't like Charlie Kirk. That's a level of dystopia that anyone with an objective eye would say, I ain't with that shit. That's nuts. And it is. JG 1982 with the $5. The suspect wasn't a trans black man, communist, registered Democrat. Oh, shucks. What are we going to do now? Humble Hummingbird with the 199 super sticker. Thank you very much for your support. Very much appreciated. JG 1982 with the $5 again. White supremacists threatened black colleges with bomb threats before any suspect was identified. I am not sure what you are referring to. If you're referring to potentially the person who committed the murder on Charlie Kirk. Again, I am not aware of that, but appreciate the information. Mark J with the $2. Thank you for courageous reporting, Peter. Hey, thank you for being here, Mark. Always chipping in on almost every stream. Very much appreciated from you, my friend. And finally, Vita in DC. Thank you for becoming a YouTube member. Very much appreciated. Now, I did say at the top, and I think that this is important for anybody who's been paying close attention to what has been going on and why I believe that there is a lot more than what meets the eye with Charlie's assassination. I thought about who would garner the most attention, perhaps the most, I wouldn't even say divisiveness, but I would say sympathy in many ways, because much as Ben Shapiro is the de facto leader of the Jewish Zionist contingent within the United States, Charlie was certainly that leader for the Christian Zionists. We see how they've reacted. I highly doubt that if it was Ben who was assassinated, that he would have been the one that would have received the same type of love and affection that Charlie is receiving right now. But something very sinister is going on right now with Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro. Colin, I need that clip of Ben that I sent you. Not this one with Levin. I will pull it up, but I need that other one that I sent to you. I know I sent you another one. If you need me to get it, put it in the private and I'll see what I can do. A lot of people, including Laura Loomer, have been trying to suggest that they were always on board with Charlie Kirk and that they weren't saying anything negative about him. We obviously have covered the very cryptic messaging that she was saying to him. Well, despite what Shapiro would have you believe now, This is what Shapiro was saying with maybe, you know how Shapiro is kind of the more of the younger crowd voice for the state of Israel? I would say for the older crowd, it's definitely Mark Levin. So here's what these two knuckleheads had to say together.
You and I have people who we thought were conservatives sound a lot like the Marxist Islamists who were attending this event last week, don't they?
I think it's exactly right. Unfortunately, there's a grievance culture that has become the dominant strain on the left that says that all people in the world who are poor, who have bad lives, that is the fault of the West, that is the fault of Israel, it's the fault of capitalism, it's the fault of the Jews, it's the fault of anyone except for themselves. They have no...
Well, that's not true, Betty Boy. Actually, our system is broken, and you benefit mightily from how you make your money off of that broken system. There are millions of people in this country who suffer mightily because they do not have the ways and means of making the money that they need to make in order to be successful. You know, that in itself really does lend a thought, if you will, as to why that is happening now. People cannot afford to live. So how do you think they're going to react? It's always easy from the peanut gallery when you have a lot of money and a lot of power to say, how come you can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Benny is a little boy, and he's got a lot of blood on his hands, but he's got more to say.
No agency, and thus all the systems must be torn down from the rooftops all the way down to the ground. And you see that sort of mirrored on a weird horseshoe part of the right that is now arguing sort of the same thing, that the problems that people have are intractable, that there's a shadowy group that's manipulating all of this, that America actually was never great. America was wrong in World War II. America never landed on the moon. And these kind of two forces are now bizarrely joining hands in the middle. It's very strange.
Do you think there's enough of an effort to push back? I find that conservative groups and conservative organizations that have these weekend events and these seminars, whether they're for young people or think tanks or that sort of thing, they sort of sprinkle these events with these kooks. They sprinkle these events with these American haters who claim to be American firsters and are fake MAGA and even stab the president in the back.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely an attempt by some of these organizations to, quote unquote, maintain the big tent. But the reality is that, as many have said, the problem with a big tent is that you may end up with many, many clowns inside. And the most fundamental thing is that just because you're saying somebody votes Republican, that does not mean that they ought to be the preacher at the front of the church. They're not the person who ought to be leading the movement if they are spending all day criticizing the president of the United States as covering up a Mossad rape ring or being a...
But that exists. It's been proven that a rape ring within the Mossad does exist. And here you are out here spewing this bullshit with the biggest shit stirrer on the other side, Mark Levin. You're doing it as well. And so what? Charlie Kirk had a few favorable things to say against what you're espousing and saying that maybe Israel is not benevolent? I don't know, man. Seems pretty messed up. And you look really guilty. Extremely guilty, as a matter of fact. I'm going to get to that in a minute. He still has a little more to say.
Tool of the Israelis for hitting an Iranian nuclear facility, a thing he has said literally his entire career that he was going to do. And so it seems to me that if we are to hold anything in sort of reverence, it ought to be the fundamental tenets of the American Republic, which I believe to reside in conservatism. And if conservative organizations are simply going to give up the ghost on that in order to maintain a sort of pseudo-coalition, that is a gigantic moral and political mistake.
So Ben Shapiro is making his move. He is making his move to take over. And it should come as no surprise that one of the things that he's looking to do right now is potentially making a power play to take over Turning Point USA. And if you ask me, that's pretty sickening, but not entirely surprising. This is what Charlie does. Or excuse me, this is what Shapiro does. There's a statement that he made. I want to pull this up. Forgive me, guys. I'm having a little bit of a glitch with my system right now. But let me pull this out of here. All right. So very important. I'm going to share my screen so you guys can see this. Let's see. So Ben Shapiro made a statement pertaining to what's going on right now post Charlie Kirk's assassination. Whoever is pulling up the comments, please stop doing that for a minute. I want to read this statement to you so you guys all have an idea of where he's coming from. So Ben Shapiro, who made an appearance at the Reagan Library, may have been postponed after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Now, granted, Ben Shapiro found his way onto Bill Maher's show on last night. So he's on his book tour right now, trying to sell his heap of bullshit to the country, as he often does. But the pundit insists he won't stop speaking out on college campuses or anywhere else, citing online rumors that he planned to cancel a college tour in the wake of Kirk's death. What online rumors? No one fucking cares about you. But anyway, Shapiro called the idea BS, where Americans were not going to be deterred. You will be deterred, and you will be walking around with a plethora of security detail. We all know you will. You're not going to show up without Secret Service or some type of protection racket to make sure that nothing happens to your sorry ass. But anyway, we're going to pick up that blood-stained microphone where Charlie left it. Now, who in the hell makes a statement like that? Who in the hell makes a statement to the effect of, we're going to pick up that blood-stained microphone? I don't know. There's just something really evil and sinister about that statement. And Lord knows from where I stand, it's just, it indicates something, almost like a tongue-in-cheek, like he's trying to let you know what the deal is. So Shapiro also had a message for those who would intimidate, who would seek to stop us, who would seek to end free discussion. F you. We will not stop telling the truth. All you do is lie, but whatever version of truth you think in your own, deluded brain, fair enough. We will never stop telling the truth. We will never stop debating and discussing. We will never stop standing up for what America is and what it should be. And we will never let Charlie Kirk's voice die. I don't know, guys. It's just something about that blood-soaked microphone statement that really makes you wonder, why would he have to throw that in there in that context? Pretty fucked up, as far as I can see. I don't have any love for Charlie Kirk, but I certainly would pick him over Ben Shapiro. And I hope all of you would too. Again, it's a moot point now because Charlie's not here anymore. But Ben is. And Ben is attempting to make a power play to take over Turning Point USA. Is he going to get away with it? I don't know. But it wouldn't surprise me in the least. It would seem on the surface that he's going to try to do something of that nature. He's an evil son of a bitch. And if anybody understands why the ilk that is the Zionist Jewish contingent that Ben Shapiro supports, let's not forget that these types of actions, which are still going on in Gaza and the West Bank, is how they conduct business. Now, for those of you who want context about what's going on here, these are Zionists that are stealing another piece of land in the West, I believe this is the West Bank, from a Palestinian, and they're stealing their, in this case, it looks like a refrigerator, Hey, if I don't take it, somebody else is going to take it. Am I right? Here's some milk for your troubles. We stole your refrigerator. We took everything out of it that we wanted. We don't want the milk. Might be expiring in a day or two. Here, you can have it. I don't know how they have the grace to not really fight back. I wish they would. Lord knows if I was there, I would probably do something a lot worse. Just thought. Tough. Look at these fucking inbreds. I swear to God, the sooner we can get away from them, the better off we all will be. All of us. We can't save everybody, and we certainly can't save the Palestinians. But what we can do is we can redirect our country away from this genocidal state and everyone in this country that supports it. That's our job, to put our differences aside and figure out how we get away from this genocidal ideology. And Ben Shapiro gleefully supports it. It's a monumental task, for sure. But we have to do what we have to do. Fuck them all. I don't apologize. And I don't really care what anybody thinks. You can call me every name in the book. You could call me an anti-Semite, even though those people are not Semites. Not even close. Highest concentration of skin cancer in the world, by the way. You should know that. We have to break away. We must. That's our job. So let's make sure that we collectively work together to do so. And if we do, a lot of good is going to come of it, but it's going to take a hell of a long time in order to get it done. I am as disturbed as each and every one of you are by the actions of this genocidal state. The reason I take extreme exception with it compared to some other countries that are doing various actions. What's going on in the Congo, what's going on in Somalia, what's going on in Yemen, what's going on in Lebanon. The difference here is that those countries don't control us the way that Israel does. We can always offer helpful solutions to solve these problems. But make no mistake about it. The reason why, where are our mods, guys? Henry, you hanging in there okay? I mean, is Henry Kajawa? I know that I saw the message that Henry wanted to jump on. Brett, you there? Rachel, you helping out? Hey, guys, normally we don't have 800 or 900 people in the chat. So, yeah, we definitely need a few mods. Hey, Jen, why don't you get in there and be a mod? How's that? I know you're there. Oh, you guys are all having fun in the chat tonight. Okay, listen, this is how it goes. When you grow, you grow. And there's going to be trolls. There's going to be bots. There's going to be Zionazis. Maybe a little Ben Shapiro supporters. It's the price you pay for growth. But maybe we could use an extra mod. So be it. But I certainly understand if this is getting a little out of control. Well, if you really want it to get out of control, it's going to get out of control now. You know why? Because we are coming to the central talking point for the evening. And that, of course, is Nick Fuentes. Now, I said from the top, this is going to become, or at least on the part of the corporate special interests that do not want the Charlie Kirk story to remain in the mainstream. They want to usher it aside as quickly as possible. So they're going with one or two directions right now. As far as the conservative side of politics is concerned, they're blaming it on leftism. And that's why Charlie was assassinated. On the right side, or on the left side of politics, if you even want to call it that, they're blaming groypers. Specifically, they're blaming Nick Fuentes. And you know what? There's a lot of people that eagerly want to blame Nick Fuentes for this. It'll be a lot easier if we just throw Nick Fuentes under the bus. When you get right down to it, that's the direction they're going to go in. Bella Ciao is the rallying cry, if you will, for some of the groypers. We're here. No, we do not support Charlie Kirk here, nor do we support Nick Fuentes. We can respect their game and certainly discuss key topics that they will address. But make no mistake, our goal is to unite as many people that identify with working class sensibilities in politics, because let's face it, this is a class war, nothing more. And Nick has certainly done an amazing job of cultivating a very devout following, but his ideology is flawed in several ways. Now, I'm going to show you guys a couple of key points here about Nick and how this came about. So hang on tight. Nick Fuentes had a couple of opinions pertaining to Charlie Kirk before he was assassinated and then afterwards.
Our disagreements, where we did agree, is that he would go to these college campuses and proclaim the name of Jesus Christ. And ultimately, that is why he was killed. The gunmen that killed him, they hated him because of his defense of Christian morality. Charlie Kirk cannot.
Before we even get into the second part, let's just keep this 100 here. If anybody has been following Nick Fuentes for a while, you would know that this is not how he felt about Charlie Kirk. In fact, he constantly would talk about how Charlie Kirk is a fraud when it comes to his Christianity. Well, you're going to see why in a minute. But there was no love lost between these guys. There is a clip from just a couple of weeks ago where Charlie was confronted, if you will, on his call-in show by a Fuentes supporter and asked him why you will not debate him. And Charlie just pushed it aside and said it's not a big deal. I don't address people that are frauds or fakes. So these two guys clearly did not like each other, and they clearly were competing and, well, were now obviously competing for the ear of the conservative youth. And so just prior to Charlie's assassination, this is what Nick had to say.
Charlie Kirk cannot call himself a Christian anymore. Sorry, you forfeited that. I do not want to hear, and you cannot allow Charlie Kirk to go to one more public event, one more question and answer, one more ask me anything, without being protested, without being shouted down, without being interrogated about this. This guy goes around from campus to campus in the most artificial and phony and fake way, talking about, oh, God made me very blessed that I control $500 million. Oh, I'm so blessed. I'm so rich and I'm so blessed. And oh, God's been so good to me. I'm such a Christian. Oh, the Lord gave me the Sabbath. I take Saturday off.
I thought it was Sunday off. But who's counting, right? I mean, we are supposed to have a weekend after all. Those days are over. The Nick Fuentes speaking right now is the Nick Fuentes feeling the way that he actually felt about Charlie Kirk, not the way that he felt on the left-hand side. Again, he's doing damage control because he knows that they are going to blame him for this assassination. Nick Fuentes was having a serious impact regarding the Palestinian movement. And if you think that they were just going to sit and take it, you'd be sorely mistaken. You think Milikowski and his cohorts were not aware of the impact that Nick Fuentes was having when he was telling his audience, free Palestine? Charlie Kirk, you're a fake Christian. You claim to be this pious guy, and you throw the Palestinians under the bus, especially the Palestinian Christians who you know are being mass slaughtered. He wasn't wrong. And that's why I believe, not necessarily because of Fuentes, but Charlie was having very conflicting feelings about what was going on. And that's why his tune was changing on the regular. That's why he was questioning, am I doing enough for the state of Israel? And as I've said, you can never do enough. When you decide that that's how you're going to make your money, eventually the devil comes to collect. Say what you want about Fuentes, he doesn't take that money that Charlie Kirk does, or did. And that matters.
You sit there and call yourself a Christian and then you make excuses for the genocide of 2 million people? Seriously? You stand there and purport to be an evangelist like Billy Graham? Oh, you're the latest Billy Graham? You're our generation's America's pastor? Why? Because you said the right words? Because you said, God bless, God bless.
After he insulted or denigrated other people, but then he would say, God bless, and that just makes it okay. As I said, religion gives the wrong people the power to defend their inhumanity. I don't know for sure if Charlie Kirk was a hateful bigot as people projected him to be. But he certainly made a lot of money by saying certain things that riled up a significant portion of the white evangelical base that makes up a significant portion of Trump's voters, especially in the South and in the heartland. There's no question that that matters. But at some point, maybe you do have a come to Jesus moment, no pun intended. At some point, you might ask yourself, is this really worth it? Is it really worth selling out the country? Because even Charlie had to be asking himself, for somebody who claims to be America first and cares about the United States, if you support the state of Israel, you are supporting the demise of the United States. We're already going straight to hell to begin with. But if you want to get there as fast as humanly possible, support Milikowski and his efforts. That's the bottom line. Guys, I appreciate you defending me in the chat. If people want to bash me, that's fine. I don't give a shit. That stuff doesn't bother me. I just appreciate people being here. The more people that watch, the more people that hate, like, or even hit the not like button, it just helps people see the channel. We've been cruising around 900 live stream viewers tonight. I'm not going to apologize. I'm grateful for everyone that's here, even the ones that hate my guts. Now that's Christian behavior right there.
God bless, my friend. Oh, I rebuke the devil in the name of Jesus. And then you go around from campus to campus making excuses for a famine?
I told my friend who's friends with Charlie Kirk, who is claiming that he's not really aware of what's going on. And I just said, just check out the interview that we did with Anthony Aguilar if you need proof about what was really or has been going on in Gaza and has always been going on. there is really something to be said for unwinding this issue that is the connection between Judaism and Zionism, that the Zionist movement want you to believe is why we must continue doing what we're doing. No, we must break away from it. And so whether it is the Schofield Bible that makes up the foundation for Christian Zionism, or the Talmud, which is what is espoused by Jewish Zionists, Nick is not easy to handle. His style is very antisocial. And for a lot of people, that doesn't work. Well, that's really great of you, Kate. I appreciate you being here. And I will continue to let people know that I am here for free for you to enjoy. If you're watching this channel, I will give you impressions. Go have a good time. If there are any cute ladies in the audience, show your picture. I'm still a single guy. Just want to let you know. All kidding aside. For those that are not familiar with the Talmud, Nick is going to explain a little bit about how it works.
Torah is the Hebrew Bible, and technically the Talmud is part of the Torah. Torah means teaching. So you have the written Torah, which is the Hebrew Bible. Then you have what is called the oral Torah, which is a tradition that was passed down orally. Now, the basis of Judaism is the 613 commandments in the Bible. That is what you would call the written Torah. The oral Torah is how they interpret and apply those. So what the rabbis do is they have to interpret how they apply. That's what you call the Talmud. And the Talmud is basically rabbis debating each other about how we interpret those commandments.
Now, what I think is important here is kind of like when people debate the law and what the merits of the law actually are. It isn't a question of whether you see it one way or another. This is the whole concept about the written language in a book from over 2,000 years ago, again, written by man, just want to put that out there, the interpretation of what the message actually is. It's kind of like the message of Jesus versus the message of the church, or should I say churches, because clearly there are plenty of denominations that are out there. Catholic, Protestant, well, actually they're all Protestant, but there's the Catholic Church and then there's the Protestants that have broken away from the Catholic Church, and there are all these denominations that follow it. Baptists, Methodists, Calvinists, Seventh-day Adventists, Mormons. I don't know if Mormons are included in that. I probably shouldn't say that. But you've got plenty of others. Episcopalians, Lutherans. Credit to the Methodists who actually just divested away from the state of Israel. Will there be any other major churches out there that will follow suit? I hope so. But that's why we have to keep the pressure on. Pentecostals are crazy. But remember, guys, Charlie Kirk was an evangelical Christian. Much like, as I said, Ben Shapiro is the whisperer for the Jewish Zionists. Charlie was the whisperer, at least to the youth, for the Christian Zionists. And that's why his assassination is so significant. Flags at half-staff? Crazy. But not at all surprising.
But that is the basis of Jewish law. It's those written commandments and the oral application of them. That constitutes the whole of Jewish law. Any Jewish student who goes to a yeshiva or a Jewish school, like Ben Shapiro, he studies the Talmud. The Talmudic Judaism, that is the Judaism of today. Without it, you can't interpret Jewish law. There's a Israeli Jewish historian named Israel Shahak. He is considered the Thomas Aquinas of Judaism, like the greatest scholar of Jewish law. He said that every Jew should pray for the death of every Christian every day. And
again, I don't know who this guy is. I don't know if it's true. I am not going to sit here and tell you that it isn't true. What I know is based on what I see. And if you observe the behavior of the Zionist Jews in Israel, when it comes to whether it's Muslim Palestinians, Christian Palestinians, or anybody who just isn't Jewish, they spit on them, harass them, now they kill them. And do I think that there is language that actually affects the bottom line when it comes to somebody's decision-making about whether or not they're going to use violence against their perceived enemy? No. I think it's very common practice. In fact, I would be shocked if it wasn't. Especially now that we see the effects that Charlie had on a lot of people. You're seeing how committed to their so-called cause they have gotten to regarding this. It's just getting started. But the doxing, that's going to get worse. The divisions are going to get worse. And who's to say that there isn't going to be more bloodshed? I'm not saying it's going to be Nick, but I am saying that we should not be surprised. Thank you very much, Evil Tricky Spider. I was feeling a little devilish for a few minutes, and that feeling just went away. But keep smashing that like button, please.
This is loaded up in the Talmud. It's loaded up in Kabbalah, which is the mystic tradition, which is this intense hatred and distrust, in particular of Christians, but of all non-Jews in general. Netanyahu gave a speech last year, and he said that the Palestinians are Amalek. Amalek is a biblical term. It refers to a story in the Old Testament where the Israelites wipe out an entire race. They're called the Amalekites. And Yahweh tells them, kill all the women, all the children, murder all of them, genocide them, so their bloodline stops. And that's a reference to that Bible story. And if you read anything about the Israeli government, anything even about Talmudic Judaism, what they say is, we don't love our enemies. They say that the non-Jews, we don't even consider them human.
And that's not a lie. And he is right about Amalek. But remember, this isn't a message that is espoused by all tenements of Judaism. It just isn't. It's specifically for conservative Zionist practice. That is who pushes it. So the decision by more people to just kind of sweep all of this under the bus in one fell swoop and say all Jews are bad, that's not right. You have plenty of Jews that are doing everything in their capacity to mount a defense against all of this. The Zionist project has made it clear that if they go, all Jews are coming with them. That's why they preach what they preach. But you have people like Jen, Katie Halper, Lee Camp, Jordan Chariton. There's a lot of them out there that are using their platform for good. And whether we like it or not, Nick Fuentes is using his platform to get as many of his supporters away from Israel as possible. Just as I credit Tucker Carlson for stopping Trump from going to war in Syria. Just as I credit Charlie Kirk for playing a role in stopping Trump from going to war in Iran. I give credit to Nick Fuentes for rallying his people away from the state of Israel. It's not easy to do. I know that an assassination attempt on his life has been made at least once that we know of. The Lord knows there's probably plenty of others that we don't see. But I would imagine he's pretty shaken up about what just happened.
They don't have souls. They don't have moral culpability. We have very little regard for their lives.
Well, it is imperative that we do not allow this narrative to continue, but also call it out for what it is. I am asking each and every one of you that are in the chat this evening, that have been here, that have been watching this channel that either appreciate what we have to say, maybe you're just curious as to what our stance is. I am telling you right now, if there is one thing you all can do, because I know a lot of people are upset. I know a lot of people here probably support Nick. Heck, you might even support Charlie. Judaism and Zionism are not the same thing. And I don't want to hear nothing about how, well, in the end, they all defend each other. No. Heck, even if it was 80% of Jews that believed in Zionism and the decimation of all other cultures, that still leaves you 20% of the people that want no part of this. And they're doing their part to fight it off. And the more the walls close in, the worse things are going to get. As I said about an hour ago, and I'll say it again, I think Netanyahu's a dead man walking. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And if there was any doubt, somebody please stop messing with my stuff right now. Yes, B management, the Talmud is supremacist, just like the Quran and the Bible. That's why I don't do religion. I don't do it. That doesn't mean I don't believe in God. I believe in the possibility of a higher power and a supreme being. It's certainly possible. I can't prove that it doesn't exist. So you know what I do? I live my life by the golden rule. Do unto others as you would have done to you. If you follow Christ's golden rule, that's the best shot you got at living a successful and fulfilling life. I haven't attracted any bigots. Bigots will find their way here, and either they will change their mind about what they perceive to be their reason for trying to say that we're wrong, or they see the light, realize that, yeah, you know, when you put it that way, it actually does make sense. All right, I guess we got to play it. Jen's getting frustrated, and she doesn't like how people are acting. You guys are giving her a hard time, and I don't like it. But here we go. Stop saying Zionism or Judaism and Zionism are one and the same. They're not. And I also don't understand why everybody calls Nick a Fed. I find that interesting. I mean, listen, is it possible he could be? Maybe. I mean, Jen is always right. Well, hey, Dan, we can't keep everybody here. I'm just grateful for those that actually show up. We will do our part to try to, shed light on all of the key issues that are going on here. It is a spiritual journey. For many of us, it changes day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute in many cases. We get so much information that gets thrown at us at one time. I wish I could talk like Walken. Believe me, if I had him in my arsenal and I would practice it constantly, that would be an impression that I would really enjoy. But I don't have him just yet. I'm going to try. Come again? So I am pleading with all of you. Stop calling Zionism Judaism, because it's not the same. Would you like it if everybody called Christians Zionists? Probably not. But you know what? There's 10 times the amount of Christian Zionists than there are Jewish Zionists in the United States. That's a fact. Do you want to wrestle with that one? Check out the conversations we've had with Casey Malone. She was raised in the evangelical church, and they had an even greater deal of blood oath, if you will, to the state of Israel. That's John Hagee. That's Joel Osteen. That's Pat Robertson. That's all of those guys. And now we're entering a time where people are starting to question it. And that's good. And sometimes people of certain questionable integrity, you will find yourself working side by side with them, if only on this one critical issue. But it's the only way that we're getting out of this. We cannot think for a second that we can break away from this ideology unless we work together. That's the only way. So, if you're coming here and you're curious, we appreciate it. Jen is a little bit more sensitive to these things than I am, and that's okay. But I want you all to give us the benefit of the doubt. If you are enjoying our channel, if you're enjoying this conversation, I want you all to have a little grace about what we're doing here. If you don't, then you can go somewhere else. But if you are at least curious to some extent, you will find that we are not in this for ideological purposes. We are in this because we genuinely care about what's happening around the world, what's happening here at home, and how the system is breaking down. And the biggest reason why we have these divisive issues that go on more than any other reason is because our economic and political system is broken beyond repair. There is no putting it back together. It's not like a Band-Aid. This Band-Aid needs to be ripped off. It needs to be taken out. That is why the culture war, which has been very successful, especially for Charlie when he was here, and as it is for a lot of other people, left and right politics, doesn't matter. If you can grift your way into a bunch of money by getting people to hate each other, hey, there's some good money out there to be made. We had almost 1,000 live viewers this evening. You think we're not a channel that actually has traction, that some of these grifting corporate sponsors wouldn't love if we just decided to pick one of the two sides and just run with it and bash the other for a payday? Jen might do it, but I'm not doing it. Just kidding, Jen. No, we are here because we genuinely care. That's why we're here. And that's why we think you guys are here. Because I think some of you who may project a certain way when you're on our channel, but deep down, the reason you are here is because you are curious. Maybe there is a different way forward. Maybe we can bring people together. Maybe we don't have to hate each other. Maybe we actually are in a class war and nothing more. That's what we're facing. So if you want to fight with us, fight alongside us, because we'll take everybody. I don't care where you stand politically. I don't care what your ideology is. I don't care if you support Trump. Heck, I don't even give a fuck if you supported Harris. What I care about is, are you seeing the forest through the trees now? If you are, then recognize that this country went off the rails a long time ago. There have been many points along the way where we could have shifted it and changed it for the better. But there is no question that this country has been dying a slow death since JFK's assassination in November of 1963. It's always been that way ever since. There are different points along the way that got us here. There is no question that when we had an opportunity to rewrite history and shift course in 2015 and 2016, the Democratic Party establishment led by Debbie Wasserman Schultz fucked this country 9 ways to Sunday for decades to come because of what they did to Bernie Sanders. Now, whether Bernie's your cup of tea, the Bernie Sanders of 2015 and 2016, if we had him today, because that's not the same Bernie we have today. That's not him anymore. But that Bernie of that time, he would have defeated Trump, and this country would look a lot different today in many ways, and not just the Supreme Court. But I believe at least one signature policy, most likely healthcare, would have gotten passed, and the country would have been doing a lot better. Certainly would have probably had a much easier time pushing an anti-war message. and more of a America first domestic policy message, which is what we've needed for so very long. But I digress. We didn't get the road that we wanted. We're here now. We're going to fight. We hope you'll fight with us. Kedman with the 279, high skin cancer because son is anti-Semitic. That's anti-Semitic. But I love you anyway. JG 1982 with the $5. Groyper Wars. Nick said Charlie Kirk refused to debate him. He did refuse to debate him. I saw it with my own two eyes. This is only in the past couple of weeks. JG with the $10. Jews spit on Christians in Israel. Facts. Google it. How pathetic for American Christians to support them. Paid off. It is true, and a lot of it is based on fear. If you are raised in the evangelical church and you are told that you must support Israel or you will go to hell, yeah, if you're being indoctrinated from birth to believe that, it's understandable why they may not agree with it, but they fear for their eternal soul if they don't go along with it. JG 1982 with the $5 again. We don't hate Charlie Kirk or Nick Fuentes supporters. We just ask you to consider a different viewpoint. Hey, couldn't have said it better. I agree with that statement 100%. JG with the $5 one more time. Nick is a Fed like Alex Jones, his mentor. Maybe. Again, I don't know. But always suspect that there are ulterior motives for anyone that gets a platform as big as theirs and gets to that level. I'm not saying that he is. I'm not saying that he isn't. I'm just saying I don't know. How times certainly have changed, Mode. They've changed quite a bit. Like many empires, we end up falling for various reasons: military overexpansion, concentration of wealth, out of control more than it's ever been, division on lines that have nothing to do with economics, lack of economic upward mobility. We don't have tuition-free public colleges in the United States, specifically tuition-free trade schools. People want to learn a skill, especially if we had an economy in which we actually cared about the sanctity of value when it comes to our workers. We don't have that. We're trying to automate everything. We're trying to outsource the rest. That's why it should have disturbed everybody when Elon Musk showed up at the Unite the Kingdom rally this afternoon. What does he have to do with that? Why is he there supporting Tommy Robinson? That doesn't make sense. That's not doing us any favors. He doesn't care about us. There were people foolish enough to think that Elon was somebody who actually cared about everyday people. I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, the oligarch class laughs all the way to the bank at each and every one of you that thinks that you're on the same side. No, it's just a means to an end. They can convince you today, someone else will convince you tomorrow. However, I do believe we're entering a great awakening period here in our country. That I do believe. I believe we are at a point now where people are getting really restless with what's going on, and great change is coming. How that change is going to happen, I'm not sure. But as I said, the bloodshed is to be expected. Like I said, for Charlie's assassination, things got really real for a lot of people. And I agree with Catnip. I wouldn't trust anybody that wants to put a chip in my head either, and that's why I would not allow such a thing to happen. I would hope that enough people are sensible enough not to let that happen. So we fight on. I want to thank everybody who joined us this evening for this great conversation. I hope you all enjoyed it. We will have some clips up shortly. We'll have another clip up in an hour. Hope you'll check it out and you'll hit the like button and you'll share and subscribe and do all those things that we ask you to do. On Monday night, we will be speaking with friend of the show and content creator, Savvy Sabs. Sabrina Salvati is going to come on and talk about her latest documentary film that she has made about Boston, where she's from. So we hope you'll join us then. We've got lots of wonderful guests coming up, including Rothbone, who checked in earlier this evening. I believe he's on in just over a week's time. But yeah, like I said, we are a channel that doesn't define ourselves specifically by an ideology. There's no point. We have to get so far past that at this point. We are the United States of America. And to that republic for which it stands, if we are to be one nation, we have to put our differences aside. We have to get back to having healthy debates. Well before what happened with Charlie, we've been trying to do that here. I think we've done a decent job, but we never really had a big audience. Now, for the last week plus, it looks like we're starting to get somewhere. I cannot thank you guys enough. And a shout out to Robbie, yes. If there is an issue above all others that we have to stay focused on, this is the issue of our time. There is nothing bigger. Until we break away from the state of Israel, everything else is a moot point, because they're going down and they're going to go down in spectacular fashion. Yes, we do, Brendan. He is a friend, and he'll be on the show again real soon. So smash that like button, share and subscribe, and do all those things we ask you to do. Even to those that don't care for me very much. I love you all. We appreciate you all. We'll see you Monday. And free Palestine. I am not giving Jen a hard time. I'm just ribbing the shit out of her for being too sensitive sometimes. But we all are. We have to accept that everybody is different. So get along. We've all got a role to play. Well, Australia is pretty cool. I'd like to get there one day. But like I said, appreciate you all being here. One more time, smash that like button. Let's get to 56,000 subscribers. We are just short of that. So let's get there. We'll be at only 44,000 subscribers. Jen's going to live long enough to see us get to 100,000. We'll get her that plaque, and then she'll be happy. So thank you so much. Free Palestine. Good night, guys.